Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Mondays. Doesn't have the same ring as we made it to Friday, but we made it to Monday. Yay! I guess that's something. Hope everybody is doing well out there. Hope everybody is staying safe and staying isolated and, doing all the things you're supposed to do. We're gonna give everybody a couple more minutes to get logged in and we will launch into this thing. I know a bunch of questions about the first 20 comments or so that came in I didn't get to see. I saw them flash by on YouTube, but they're not on my screen because I had to restart some software. But just to hit a couple of them, Richard Christman, Richard on YouTube is asking how often we do these sessions. Normally, in the normal world, we do this on Fridays. We get together for Fridays for a couple hours, do a nice big model, and a lot of fun, hang out, relax, that kind of thing. Because of the current situation we're in, pandemic, quarantine world, we're actually doing them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Try to focus Monday on a QA session, Wednesday on kind of a model along where I put a drawing up and we model it together, and then Friday's our standard hangout, longer form model, that kind of thing. Bob, the garage is not that warm today, and there's close to a foot of snow right outside that door. So, yeah, we're modeling through the cold. Architect school
How
on
much
YouTube.
snow do you have to get?
What's that?
How much snow do you have to get before it starts to insulate the garage?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. The overhang prevents. I always have about a foot gap between the snow and the garage. Architect School is asking how we generate ideas for videos online. We get them mostly from viewers. So during these sessions or comments on our YouTube videos or our social posts, people ask, hey, how do you do this or that? And we get dozens of those every week and try to keep track of them and make videos out of them. So, hey Gamborg, how's it going? Howdy, howdy, howdy. I'm just summarizing. Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. And we're going to switch on over and get things rolling. So,
Richard wanted to confirm the time. Yeah, it's the same time.
yeah,
Always
same
noon
time
our time.
every day. It's noon our time. We're in Boulder, Colorado. I'm here with Jody. Jody's on the line with us.
Hello.
That's who was talking. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So a couple things are coming through before we just hop into drawing stuff. Alan Parker on YouTube's asking about compatibility with 2020. A lot of SketchUp extension developers don't necessarily check the box that their extension is updated for the most recent version. So the list that's on the right side when you look at an extension, it'll say, this is valid with 2017, 18, 19, 20. It might not say 2020 there. It's literally just a checkbox inside the interface. So if they don't check that, then Extension Warehouse just comes up and says, hey, just FYI, this may not be valid with your version. There's a good chance that we haven't had any breaking changes to the API for a while. So if 2019 is working, there's a good chance it runs in 2020. Like I said, the developer just hasn't checked that box. My recommendation is always just download it, run it. If it doesn't work, you can always uninstall it. And if something catastrophic happens, I don't know how this would happen, but if something like a big deal happens where you install an extension, it prevents you from running SketchUp or something like that, it is very easy to just go into the folders and remove the extension. It's a couple of files and in your plugins folder, and it's very easy to get rid of. So worst case, you can always get out there. There's no way to get out there. So. Hi, India, Puerto Rico, UK, Brazil, Austria, Argentina. Richard, we start like clockwork. Unless there's a problem, we have been starting, I usually start the feed about 5 minutes before, let everybody get on, and then we get running right at the same time every day. So yeah, if you made it here this morning, this is where we'll be on Wednesday and Friday and next Monday. So for the time being. Yeah. Model an igloo?
That'd be cool. Sorry.
Yeah, that would be.
Easy.
Yeah, that was a dad joke. In case you guys aren't as quick-witted as Jody, he did make a very good dad joke about igloos and temperatures. I don't like cold jokes today, Jody.
Sorry. Too
It's
soon.
okay.
Too soon.
How do you make lights without V-Ray and SketchUp? SketchUp only has 2 lights. One is the sun, and you can use the sun to create shadows that either intersect with other surfaces or onto the ground plane, or there is a light attached to the camera that does some subtle shading as you move through the model. Those are the only lights. We don't have additional lights. That is a function of whatever rendering software you end up with. I'm just kind of popping down here. Question, when it comes to undo, Control Z works fine, but Alt backspace doesn't do anything.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I don't know what Alt backspace should do. The default shortcut is Command or Control Z. So if you want to assign it to Alt backspace, you can do that, I think. If I go to Preferences, let's find out. Under Preferences, you can click on Shortcuts. In Shortcuts, it's going to list all of the commands that are available to you right now, which is a lot. So a lot of times I'll come in here and just start typing the name of what I want to do. And here's Edit Undo. Let's see what happens if I can even put, what would be Option Delete? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not on a Windows machine, so I don't have an Alt or a backspace command. But you might be able to put it in there. I'm not sure. That would be worth trying, I guess. Like I said, the default command is Command Z, or Command. I was looking for the wrong one. Command Z or Control Z if you're on Windows. But yeah, I don't know about Alt backspace.
Yeah, SketchUp didn't really go in and hard code a whole lot of shortcuts like that.
Yeah, they're almost all editable. Do you think that SketchUp is better than 3ds Max or other softwares? This is, of course, a preference thing. It's like saying, what's better, chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream, or pizza or cheeseburgers? I don't know. It's a preference thing. I personally love SketchUp, and I have since well before I worked at SketchUp. I actually pursued a job at SketchUp because I enjoyed it. So yes, I really do like, I haven't used 3ds Max for years and years and years, but I really do like the simplicity and the usability of SketchUp. So you probably guessed that, or if you've been here before, you probably knew I was going to say that. Oh boy, now they're going by so fast. Hungary,
Yeah. Whip.
Italy. I don't know.
Mushrif wanted to know our location. We're in Colorado.
We are. Just outside Boulder, Colorado, where CU is. That was an easy one. I like these so far. Haven't had to even draw anything. This is a great Q&A. Howdy. Ooh, Arif is saying it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the evening there.
Oh, yeesh.
Caribbean.
Bedtime.
Oh, I bet it's not snowing in St. Vincent right now. Nadine on Facebook's got it warm there.
Yeah, it's also probably warm in the Maldives. Videos by Johnny wants to know why not make drawing double lines as a standard tool. That seems a little specialized for a standard tool.
It does. Off the top of my head, my thought would be.
Well, his use case is drawing walls.
You know, a lot. We've had people ask that before. I don't know what I just did. Was anybody paying attention to me? We've had that question before. I think there was Iscarnet had a tool for drawing double lines. I'm trying to remember what that was called. There's a company that had that, and they had a tool where you would draw a line and you would set the offset if you were drawing the center or left or right. For me, I got real confused about which way was my offset, that kind of thing. I personally just have gotten used to, you know, drawing a footprint, drawing your lines in the shape that you need.
Well, a
And
rectangle
then,
draws parallel lines.
what's that?
A rectangle draws parallel lines.
That's true. Doing that and then just offsetting whatever my wall width is. So that's how I've always done it, but I think there was 1 or 2 extensions that did do a double line. Wow, now they're coming in. I saw a question there and then it got away from me.
So I happen to still have some here in front of me.
Okay.
I'm gonna probably skip past any of the what's the best 3D rendering packages. That seems to come up a lot. People don't tell us ask us how to do V-Ray or what's best, and it seems like it's always the same.
Yeah.
Same answer.
So I mean, just in 10 seconds or less, there's a few dozen rendering engines that work with SketchUp, and the best one is the one that does what you need for the price you're willing to pay. If you go to our forums and look up rendering engine, you'll get hundreds of opinions. It's really hard to tell you which one to use or which one's best, because I don't think there is a best. I think it really comes down to, it's the reason there's so many cereal brands. There's a whole aisle of cereal brands. Everybody likes different things.
I just don't go to that aisle. It's too confusing.
I like cereal.
So Ross on Facebook said he's a landscape architect and they do block plant schemes using multiples of one specimen. Wants to know if there's a way they can highlight an area and then put in 200. Like type in the value 200 and 200 plants will appear. Obviously that sounds like a plugin, but. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything that does specifically that like arranges in an area, a specific number of items in an area. If you haven't already seen it, I would definitely check out Scatter. Scatter is an extension that will take your geometry and take models or proxies and literally sprinkle them on that space. So you could, in a space, I'm trying to remember the interface to Scatter, because I think there's a way that you can tell it how many to put in. Maybe I would check out Scatter. Let's just say that. And if you're doing landscape architecture, it's worth having anyhow.
Is it possible to give the surface from a section cut of a pattern?
Yes. Here, let's do something like this. I'm going to create a weird shape. All right, so I can get this surface right here. If I look at entity info, it'll tell me this is 104.81 square feet. This side is 187.16 square feet. If I come in like this, and I slide it through, through here to this is not actually a surface. So what we're looking at right here is basically an artifact that's drawn over the top of the drawing. So this isn't actually a thing right now. It didn't create that. But what you can do is I can right click and I can say create group from slice. That's step 1. What that's going to do is create here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And that created this rectangle right here. So now it's easy enough to go in that group, and if I just do that, then I can actually see what the exact square footage was at that slice. That's how I think of it without extensions. I don't know if there's an extension that tells you the square footage of a section or not. It sounds like something that would be doable as a extension, but like I said, I don't know, an extension, but I don't know off the top of my head what that would be. So, so that's that.
Sorry, I was trying to find my YouTube version of these questions on the YouTube itself. Link to the forum. Hey, I provided that. So Seth on Facebook is wondering about what, how, and why to use dynamic components.
Well, we can talk about that. So dynamic components are components, like you see in the rest of SketchUp. They're groups, but they have additional values, like real mild coding associated with them that allow you to do things like cause things to change size or that sort of thing. based on settings you put in there. So if you have something like a window, rather than having a different component for each window size, you could have a single dynamic component copied around, and then that component resized for your different window openings. That's the doors and windows are seem to be the most commonly used dynamic component place. But there's other things you can do. You can actually use dynamic components to make strings of stairs or ladders or anything where a thing repeats a bunch of times or has to change size or data, anything like that. That's the other thing, is you can use dynamic component information to put whatever information, any data you want to, into a component, which is kind of nice. Some people do some crazy takeoff manipulation number things with dynamic components. So yeah, there's a lot of options. Anytime you have to get more than just a static set of geometry on your screen, then dynamic components are worth checking out.
Nice. Well said. Well said.
Thanks.
So Richard is building a roll top desk or modeling a roll top desk, and he's curious what the easiest way to create the roll part of the roll top desk is.
So there's a couple ways, and I'm actually going to refer you to, well, it was Friday, right? Friday's video, we made an Adirondack chair where we had, let me show you a couple thoughts on that. So what we did, I'm going to start with native, and then I'll mention extensions too. What we ended up doing was, when I made the arc, so this would be the equivalent of maybe part of your track. When we made the arc of the back of the Adirondack, I started with a arc, and I put a specific number of sides. So I'm going to make this real simple. I'm just going to say that this has 8 sides. And then I'm going to put something like this. All right, so that's my arc. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something that I want to trace along that arc. Okay, so this right here is going to be my slat, or whatever you want to call it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it, and I want to copy it and have it go along that arc. So if I hover over the piece of the arc, I'll get the center, and then I can say copy from this point, option to this point, 7x, and it'll copy all the pieces along there. So I made this with big gaps and squares so you could actually real easily see what I was showing. Something like that is an option. We have to be very conscious. The other option, of course, is to do something like take one piece, option, move it over here, rotate real quick to get that flat in line, and then just do that over and over and over again. Maybe you have to do a combination of both, as you have, a roll top desk might have multiple sections, flat sections, and arced spots. So I would say check that out. Check out last Friday's video. You can just kind of scrub across till you see the slats going on the back. The other thing is, if you look at our videos on YouTube, in the SketchUp's YouTube page, we actually did a roll top desk on one of these live sessions. So I'm not saying it's the end all be all or it was the best way to do it, but you could check that out. I honestly don't remember. I think I manually put them in because I had some weird curves in it. But yeah, that's would be worth checking out as well. So those are my
Okay,
answers.
here's another how-to kind of question. Is there a way to extrude a concave or convex surface?
So we're talking about something like, we're talking about something like pulling this shape in, I'm assuming?
That's what I think.
Okay, so yes, what I would recommend is checking out the extension joint push pull. So if I come in here, it's from the developer Fredo 6. It's available not on our warehouse, but you'll have to go to Sketchucation plugin store, and you can get this joint push pull. And what joint push pull lets you do is take shapes like this and actually pull it out like that. Same with on the outside. Normal push pull only works on flat surfaces. So anytime I don't have anything that's not a single flat face, I can't use push-pull. But joint push-pull will let me, yeah, push or pull any surface, including ones like this that are, well, this is a real simple version of what it does. Anything, it could have any wavy, softened surface, and it'll work on that.
Man, I type a thing and then it scrolls me to the bottom. I have to go back and find mine. Mikhail Blomberg is asking if you ever found a way to find the heaviest object in a model. I don't remember if we ever got a happy place with that.
Oh, right, heaviest. I was thinking like physical weight. I was going to point to MS Physics.
They all weigh 0.
That's right. It's all just pixels. Yeah, I didn't. It seems like large component finder is what I want to say it was the name of an extension, but I don't remember off the top of my head if that was it or not. There's a couple of extensions that pull for information in your model, and I don't know why, but it's totally just escaping me right now. Yes, there are options out there. I don't, like I said, I can't remember the names of any of them out there. It seems like large component finder was one, but maybe I'm making that up too. Sorry, I try to remember to take a look for that after, if we don't find it.
So, wait, where to go? Design 8 suggested CADman 3D warehouse tools.
Maybe that was one of them. Yeah, that CADman, if you look at his, he has something that'll poll how big a component is, and it gives you that size. It doesn't tell you which one's the biggest, but it'll let you actually see how big each of them are. I think that's right.
You can make that choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then the decision's yours. What to do with that information.
Is there a way to hide or unhide materials in your model?
Materials?
Probably just a case of changing your view.
Right. So I'm going to guess some things because I don't exactly know what you mean, but I'm going to say something like this. Oops. So if I have something like this where I have materials applied right now, when we talk about materials, this is what I assume you're talking about, because these are materials, and to hide them, I can choose my different view types. So I can go to show me front backspaces, so that hides it. I can also come to this monochrome. Is that monochrome? I forget which names. I forget the names of these sometimes. But yeah, hidden line versus shaded, which is just going to give me a colored representation, versus textured. Versus, like I said, this is the front back face, I think. Monochrome. That's monochrome. Okay. So if that's what you mean by hiding materials, just check your types. You can actually see those too if you go to, I believe, View, Face Style, and that's these options right here.
Monochrome. There you go.
That would be how to do that.
All right. So I don't know if this one's come up in a Q&A yet, but it's a relevant question. Is there a version of SketchUp that could run on the iPad Pro?
We don't officially support iPads at this point. Some people have said they have some success with using SketchUp for web on their iPad. We don't have an app or anything like that, but you can try to run it from there. Like I said, it's not officially supported, so there's some things that don't work, and you know, it's not officially supported, so, but you can try it out. Like I said, some people have done it.
I think the tricky thing is 3-button mouse support.
Yeah.
Which is starting to become available on the iPad, but I don't think that we're ahead of that. So.
Right. Yeah. So, kinda, I guess would be the answer. Not officially, nothing is supported, but some people have gotten away with it that way.
So Richie Rich said, can you grip a section with the move tool so that you can get precise section locations?
Absolutely. People get I don't know, confused, I think, by it seems weird because it's not a physical thing. Everything else I model in SketchUp is a physical thing, but the section plane does not look like a regular thing, but it works just like a regular thing. So I can come over here to move, pick anywhere on the line, and slide it wherever I want to. Yeah, so it's pretty much that easy. Like I said, I know a lot of people get hung up on that and they want to do something special with it, but move works like that. I can go to rotate, so I can actually say that I want to spin that section, and I can spin it just same way, type in the angle I want 35 degrees, go back to move it again. You are always going to move it perpendicular. So section planes are always the full limit, the full width of your model or context. If you're inside a group and you put a section plane in, it's as big as everything that's inside that group or component. So you don't have to worry about moving it laterally or vertically or anything like that. You only ever move it normal to the face of the section. So yeah, that's exactly how it works. You actually confirmed your own suspicion in the question. Well done.
Okay, this is a really long one. I didn't pre-read it.
Oh,
sorry. So this is John on Facebook. He said, I do 3D print modeling with SketchUp. Is there a way to have smooth surfaces for 3D printing? He used the smooth tool in SketchUp to smooth a barrel-like object, and then wanted the model to look smooth for complex curves. However, when he 3D prints, it's you know the rest. It's polygonal.
Yes.
Polygonal.
Yes. So SketchUp is a polygon modeler. It draws faces. It's not a NURBS modeler or something like that where it automatically goes in and softens geometry. So if I'm looking at something like this is a 10-sided piece. It has 10 sides. So even if I select all of it, I go to soften and smooth, and I say soften this, and I crank it up to the point that I can't see it, those faces are still there. This is still a 10-sided piece. This didn't just become round just because I softened it. So soften and smooth is actually kind of a display artifact while you're inside of SketchUp. It doesn't actually affect what's out there. If you want something to be smoother than this, if I want something to look like a real round dowel, then when I come in here to draw my circle, I want to do something like bump up the number of sides. Maybe I'll go to 48 sides, and that's going to give me what appears to be a much smoother dowel. Now the thing is, if I click Show Hidden, this is still a bunch of faces. So these faces are still here. But if you eventually get that number small enough, like in something like 3D printing, it'll look smoother. So it is a matter of being conscious of how you draw those things. You have to walk a line too. That doesn't mean you should draw every single circle as 99 sides, which I think is that the max, or is it 999?
Well, I don't even want to consider making it 999.
Yeah, that'd be nuts. Because every time you do that, you're adding so much more geometry to SketchUp that SketchUp then has to work with. So you want to model just enough sides so that it will print smoothly for your specific model.
Recommendations from like engineers and designers on the SketchUp team for years has been like, don't ever exceed 100. You're creating unnecessary complexity there that's just going to completely ruin your SketchUp experience.
And the thing to keep an eye on too is how big is this going to be? So if this piece when it's done is going to be like this wide, if this is a 1/4 inch stick that's sticking up, I don't have to put 100 sides on this because a printer's not going to print that fidelity. If this is going to be a coffee cup, so I mean if this is like literally this whole thing is, this big, well, I will probably be able to pick up 48 sides when I print it. So I might want to bump that to like 96 sides or something like that if that's the main piece of what you're printing. So it's really a question of balancing extra geometry with the functionality of the model. So the other thing is, a lot of times if you're 3D printing something, then that geometry is all you're worried about, so you don't have to worry about things like trees and cars and doorknobs and other stuff in your model. So you can end up making a little bit heavier model, knowing that SketchUp's still going to be performant because you're only modeling one piece, but it's a balancing act sometimes.
Do you have any tips and tricks for using the scale tool, for example, when scaling up to exact dimensions?
Yes. Next question. Oh, you want to see them. Okay. So let's say I want to take this right here and I want to scale it. So most of the time, when you start scaling here, so here I'll back up one. First thing, mouse stuff. Click and release. So I go grab my top handle, click and release. Now I'm free to move or type in dimensions. I don't know, with scale especially, people get real tempted to click and drag and hold on, but now you're stuck because you can't let go with this finger, and if you start typing, you got to stop moving your mouse altogether. So click your point, start dragging. Now, as it shows in the lower right corner, you can type in a scale. So if I knew I wanted to make this 80% of what it was, I could type 80. I'm sorry, 0.8 would be 80%. 80 would be
That's a good try.
80 times taller. The other thing you can type is if I want it to be a specific height. So if I want it to be 20 foot, I could type 20 foot, and now that is vertically 20 feet. So if I check from here, drop straight down, see right there in my lower right corner, it says 20 foot. So exact dimensions are far simpler than people think they are. The other thing to note is you can inference with scale. So I can click right here, and as I start to drag up, I can actually come to an existing point, and that's going to make sure that both these objects are the exact same size. So yeah, those would be my recommendations. The other thing is watch your modifier keys, because you have the ability to toggle about the center or maintain uniformity when you go to scale. So watch your modifier keys, click and release, and then yeah, you can type in dimensions. The dimension thing that's kind of important too is you want to use dimensions when you're using one of the side scales. If you use a dimension on the corner, it will scale to that dimension, but usually a dimension diagonally across the body of your selected thing is usually not terribly helpful. So while it will work, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to double check. It's hard to be precise. How do you check that against the real world? It's really hard to measure through solid objects. So yeah, generally speaking, if you're going to scale to a specific dimension, use the one of the three side sets, the X, Y, or Z. That's a good question.
So Architect School is using the 3D Warehouse. They said some of the content's not available for download. They're curious how to fix that. You want to talk about the current use of 3D Warehouse?
Yeah, not available for download. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I think there's two possible. One is you have to be logged into the warehouse to download things now.
Yes.
And then the other is someone can put something on the warehouse, but not offer. I think there's an option to make it not available for download.
Oh, okay. I guess I don't pay attention very often. I upload a couple times a week, but I usually just click the same things. So I didn't know about the not available for download, but you do have to be logged in. So that is one thing that's changed in 3D Warehouse, and it's purely to help us make sure the content we're putting up is good. So we're trying to put more and more information in there. The thing that we run into with 3D Warehouse is it's an amazing spot to get 3D models, but there's so much content. And we've heard from people over and over again, like, why am I seeing this, and this model when I only want these kinds of models? And the best way we can come up with to help you find the models that you need is to have you log in and pay attention to what information you want, that kind of thing. So yeah, you do have to be logged in, otherwise you won't be able to download. That's probably it.
Yeah, it looks like the options you've got are you can make it private, which I don't think anybody will be able to see then.
Yeah, can't see it if it's private.
You can disable comments and you can disable attributes.
Okay.
So if you're not able to download, probably you need to be logged in.
Yeah. So try logging in and then try to download the file.
More questions about trying to hide by materials. So someone pointed out Paul pointed out you could actually do, you could hide layers if you assigned it to hide materials by assigning it to the tag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anything can be assigned to a specific tag. Well, any geometry can, so you could assign it to layers by material and then turn them all
off. So Ross has asked what's by your left hand, and I forgot who said it.
Jody has a link.
Somebody above was asking if your right-handed mouse was for repetitive stress, or what kind of mouse you've got there.
So this is just my standard 3-button mouse. It's a Logitech MX Master. I like it because I have a lot of shortcuts I can put on here. It's got 7 customized buttons. This is a 3D mouse. This is the Space Mouse Enterprise from a company called 3D Connection. It allows me to move in 3D space just by moving this puck. It's not a requirement. I don't have to have one of these to work in SketchUp. The scroll wheel on the 3D mouse actually works real well for zooming in and out or for orbiting. Very nice. It's actually one of the things that drew me to SketchUp was how easy it was to move in 3D space. The 3D mouse is just a nice to have because what this does is it makes moving in smooth motions like this very easy. So that's why I use it for things like our live streams, is because this is much more pleasant to look at than me going like this and you having to just ride along with wherever my brain decides I need to go look right now. This is a little bit easier to follow along. So it is a nice to have. If you do any kind of presentations of your SketchUp models, it's a good thing to look at. Or if you're a designer who spends a lot of time designing, it's helpful because you can actually move through your model. It leaves your standard mouse available to go pick a different command or something like that as I'm moving around, and then I can apply that, and then I can come back over here and I can switch into a different command, and then when I get here I'm ready to rotate, and then I can come back over here and pick out move while I move. So it's nice because it is a time saver too while you move through and navigate your model at the same time as you pick your commands and work through them too. So yeah. And there we go. Jody put up a link too.
Yeah, click. Okay, so Patrick on Facebook said he has a problem that a window lays itself horizontal even though he modeled vertical when he set up glued a plane on a wall.
I'm guessing something like this happened. So I'm going to make a super simple window. All right, and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to say this is my window component. So I'm going to say make component. I'm guessing it has something to do with your axes right here. So there is this filter here about gluing to any horizontal, vertical, sloped. I always leave it to any because I confuse myself. The important thing is when I have glue to turned on, make sure that the X is facing towards you. So this is correct. So if I go ahead and I'm going to call this window, and now if I come into my components and I grab my window, when I bring it in, it'll snap flat like that. I'm going to go ahead and explode this one and make it a component again. So glue to any. If you have something like I can't cause a problem. Here, let me turn it to none. There we go. So now when I go create it, see how that X is laying flat? So that is saying when I go place window 2 now, it's going to place it on its end. So I'm guessing what happened was that you somehow maybe had your axes changed and that axes wasn't coming up, or you changed it from glue to any to glue to vertical or horizontal, and it's flipping it as it tries to glue. So I would check that out. That would be my quick answer.
So I'm trying to find a link here. Titus actually commented that in clever 3D printing software, you can set up how many sides coexist. Like you can turn basically segments into a curve. But I'm not sure.
I don't know if that'll work with, because we don't send out any curves.
No. So he said how many sides with the same angle is a curve.
Oh.
So basically, if you've got 6 sides or more, then it could try and turn into a curve or something like that. But I'm not sure which slicer software. Maybe he wants to post a name. He said any in the clever 3D printing software, but I don't see clever, and I've never used clever. So.
Yeah, because it's like CL3VER or something like that.
Yeah.
Something else to touch. This is just something that went by. Why don't I use specific shortcuts? I use shortcuts like crazy. I use them all the time. A lot of times, if I'm explaining something, I will go up and use the menu just to show somebody where it is. When I design, I almost never go to the menu. And at this point, I don't even touch my keyboard very often because most of my shortcut keys are either on my 3D mouse or on my 3-button mouse. So Shortcuts are awesome. If you do any amount of design, I highly recommend you get into them and learn how to use them because they're huge time savers. So if you don't see me doing it, it's because of that. It's because I'm intentionally not showing it, or it's just force of habit. For whatever reason, Command S has never made it onto any shortcuts. I don't have a button for it or anything like that. I just save with Command S, so that one's just a weird one.
So it's interesting you bring that up because you have then two other ones. One of them, Titus asks what you're using on your Mac to customize the mouse, and Lee Warner is asking if you have any shortcuts set up for your MX Master specifically.
Yes. It's a Logitech software, so I just use the Logi, L-O-G-I, I don't know, whatever, let's see if we can, there we go. Their driver software is named that, L-O-G-I, and it lets you customize whatever you want. So on here, I'll do this the best I can, but these two little buttons right here are both customizable, and I have the front one mapped to L and the back one to erase. So I can real quickly flip between a line and an eraser without really doing much work there. Most of the work I do, I think those two commands are the ones I use like far and away the most. Beyond that, the thumb rest right down here is also a button. So if I push down with my thumb, it goes into select. And if I click on that button and drag up, down, left, or right, that's 4 more commands. So if I click and drag up, it goes to move. Click and drag down is push, pull. Left is rotate, and right is rectangle. So I find that all the different ways that I model, because I think one of the things that I found with my job in particular is I'm called upon to make different kinds of models throughout different days of the week. So sometimes architectural, it'll be a product the next day, and then a subdivided model, but those commands seem to be pretty consistent throughout all the different types. So that's why those 7 commands made it onto my mouse.
So Morteza asked a good question, but then Steve Baumgartner already answered it.
Good job, Steve.
I'm sorry, Morteza, I'm not sure gender for that name. If there's any way to divide a screen into 4 subscreens for showing plan, elevation, and ISO, to which Steve said, you can't do it in SketchUp, but put viewports in layout.
Yes, that is the correct answer. Steve knows. I trust Steve. Steve, Dave, yeah, those guys know what they're talking about.
See, this is the same problem we have in forums. They're just faster at answering these questions than anybody else.
No kidding.
Geert is wondering if there's a way to insert and find wood screws in a solid. You're going to have to do a video about making screws or threads because
I guess it's
coming up.
All right, maybe we'll do whatever we do on Wednesday, which is actually one of my questions. I wanted to throw this out to you guys. So generally speaking, if you haven't been here before, on Wednesdays we do a model along. So I try to post a picture of something or plans or something like that, and then you guys get to download it, and then we all just hang out together and walk through step by step and make it. My question for you would be, what should we look for to model? Last week and 2 weeks before that, we did machine parts, which is pretty good. What was the Wednesday in between? It was something different. Oh, extensions. We talked specifically about a handful of extensions. But I've had so many questions about screws. I'm kind of thinking that one way or another we should model a screw on Wednesday. But go ahead, and if you have a thought of something that you think would make we're looking for like a good hour of modeling from a plan, just leave that with the comment, just say Wednesday model, and then give us an idea of what you think that should be. As far as wood screws or machine screws, what did he say?
So he said a way to insert and find wood screws in a solid.
So
he probably means
I'm going to go back. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to do the teacher thing. I'm going to challenge your question a little bit. Absolutely, you can do that. If you have screw geometry, or like I said, Wednesday we'll actually talk about creating screw geometry from scratch. But if you have that geometry and you want to extract it, my suggestion would be using solid tools. So create your screw, put it into your block, whatever your solid piece is, use the screw and say trim from the block, and it'll give you that screw hole. The question that I have is why you want to do that. Screws are just super thick with geometry. No matter how you make a screw, you're going to end up with hundreds or thousands of faces. As soon as you subtract that geometry from another piece, you're creating twice as much geometry. So if you have 10 screws at 2,000 each, you got 20,000 faces. As soon as you cut those holes out, you got 40,000 faces just for some holes. So generally speaking, when I talk to people about this, and I think Dave has actually put some models up about this too, is when I'm looking at this, is it important that I see, so if this is, maybe this is, well, it's a square, so let's say it's a big trunk I made. Very clean though, very clean design. You like that, those nice white corners? Took me hours to design it. But if I wanted to show a screw in here, is there a reason to have a full 3D modeled screw going inside and then subtracting out the geometry for the threads? Or does something like this work just as well? Can that represent my screw? If I need to, can I come in here and say, you know, do something like this? So really, the issue I come back to here with this is how much of this do you need? There we go. So can I just make that into a component and put that wherever I need it? Because this is, so that's almost 70 entities just for that flat screw head. So think about that as soon as you start making the full screws. Yeah, I think I've just rambled enough about it, but it really comes down to why do you need it? Because showing that screws is absolutely, if it's for a detail or something like that, then what I said before, yeah, absolutely. You can just, I would use solid tools to subtract it out.
And just do it once, keep that off to the side, and then maybe show that in layout. Do all your documentation in layout so you can have just that part.
Yeah, so like
you can have just a separate file.
Yeah, and if it's going to be a machine part where the actual screw that gets, you know, the threads that get cut out are important, then absolutely you can do that. But that's why I tagged in on the word you said about wood screws, because that can make your model very heavy very quickly, and especially if you're doing it like in massive amounts, like wood screws are actually used, or how I use wood screws. Just keep screwing until there's not enough wood to hold onto the screw anymore. Then it's going to get rough pretty quick. That's a good question though.
Thanks. I wouldn't mind, but I'll say thanks on their behalf. How do you make a certain style default? Profile lines, Barack feels slows SketchUp down. So he wants to get rid of that.
Absolutely. Very easy. Ready? Brace yourself. We're going to do it right now. It is in style. So if you come to styles, specifically profiles, if you go to edit, you can turn profiles off. Once that's turned off, all you're doing is changing the style that's associated with your current model. That's all you're doing. If I want this to be the all the time style, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this box. I'm going to put Laura right where I want her to start with, and I'm going to go to File and say Save as Template. And I'm going to call this my new default, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. I can put a description here too. So default files are just SketchUp files. So basically the short answer is set up a SketchUp file how you want to start, and then just save it as a template. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now, when I come in here and I hit File New, it's going to pop up. There, let's close everything. Oh, I didn't mention this. I did create a topic on our forum, so if you do have specific questions or files you have issues with or whatever, that is there too. So now if I go back to SketchUp and I say File New from Template, I have the option of choosing the default templates, or I can go to My Templates and pick the one I want to use. So if I click New Default right now, it's going to pop up. There you go. You can see no profiles. Same goes for things like, units, default
basically
colors.
Everything under model info.
Yeah, all this stuff, if I go to Window, Model Info, everything that's in here is set and tracked as part of this. So what I actually should have done was turned off length snapping and saved that, because I keep having issue with that. But yeah, it's just part of the template. Nice and easy.
It's all just part of the template.
It's all just part of the template.
David Lopez, this might be a throwback to your section cut comment earlier, or what you were talking about. He said in section cuts, he wants to change, or can he change the line weights in the background later in layout? He wants to change the background to various line weights that he can't do in styles.
Oh, short answer would be yes.
So you can always go in and, would you have to do it in hybrid mode? Or are you going to do it right now? You just do it right now.
I'm just creating something to look at.
That is something.
That's something.
I'm looking at it.
All right, there's a thing I made. So specifically, you're asking about section cuts. So if I come in here and I create this section, and then I move that in here, I just want to touch on this part right here. If you click on, if you're in your style and you click on the edit tab, it's that last tab with the little blue box, you have the ability in here to change the section fill, section lines, and line width of that section. So even before you get to layout, you can come in here and you can say, okay, change my fill to maybe this nice light blue color, and the lines will be a darker blue color, and my default width for my section cut lines is 3. So it's significantly thicker than the geometry around it. So generally speaking, when I do this, I tend to drop it back down a little bit so it's not quite as intrusive, but maybe like a 2, so it's a little bit more noticeable. But you can change that. You can change that inside. You don't have to wait to get to layout, if that was your question, to change that geometry, that information. You can do it right there also.
Nice. So you do it, the same settings apply to layout in the SketchUp settings. Is that what it's called? The box in layout?
In layout, yes. Model settings? Model settings. We'll let you take your viewport and change the line weights in that viewport.
Okay, let's see what we got next here. We already asked that one about the software you're using. Architecture School wants to make short educational clips and tutorials for SketchUp. Do you have any advice on making SketchUp videos?
I've done a couple. Yes, the things that I would recommend is keep it short and sweet. Focus on what you're gonna make a video on. And the biggest thing is I know we're all proud of our 4K monitors, and we all have these 7,000 buttons and everything on your screen. But if you're gonna try to show a video on SketchUp, I would recommend dropping your resolution to something reasonable, like 1080 at the biggest, and keep your screen simple. Because I've seen a couple of videos out there where people have the top third is shortcut buttons, so the whole model shrinks that much, and then they have their tab on the left side, so their model shrinks even more. So in the end, you got this little model like this, and then all this UI that isn't relevant to what you're showing. So that's one of the reasons people have actually asked me, why don't I have more toolbars turned on, that kind of thing. It is because I want to, when I show this model, I want to show it as big as I can. I already lose this much because of my face, and then I lose a whole section over here because I do keep a lot of my tab bars on. So I want to make this part as clean and clear as possible, so I don't have 6 or 7 toolbars on at a time. So that'd be the biggest thing, is just keep it clean.
Keep it clean.
Keep it clean.
It's like a boxing ref in a movie.
That's right. Want to see a nice clean fight here? Oh wait, no, probably no fighting. Don't fight. That's another thing. Keep it clean and don't fight.
No fighting. Alho Bob on Facebook asked, said the mirror function which appears in your SketchUp, is it available in SketchUp 2020? Because he can't find it in extensions. I think he means Keurig, but
yeah, this is Keurig Mirror. It's on Extension Warehouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've downloaded it there. Here,
Yeah.
I'll even post a link.
Jody will put a link up to it. It might be one of those that doesn't actually say that it's for 2020, but it works fine in 2020. So it's possible it says 2019 on the listing page, but it works in 2020 just fine. I'm guessing that's something like that. There you go. Thank you, Jody.
There you go. Oh man, jumped me to the bottom.
You guys have so many questions. If
Yeah.
By the way, if we do skip over your question, it's not personal. It's not because we don't want to. It's because do we have a total number? Several hundred questions have come in less than an hour. So we're doing our best. Apologize if that happens.
Yeah, I might just zoom closer to the bottom because some of these get answered in the meantime.
Okay.
Or I miss out on things like Dave Richards pointed out that you forgot to update your style before you saved it as a template. That doesn't help us now.
Still work though.
So
yeah.
Okay.
But my style is yeah. He's right. Of course he's right. He's Dave. He's right.
He's got it. Well, he's at least very good at correcting you. Hollow Bob had another question about importing a plan from AutoCAD. He wants to turn off lines or turn the plan to faces in a fast way to start modeling.
So there's a couple extensions out there that Make Face is one of them. When you pull in those lines from anywhere, from wherever you get lines from, CAD or Illustrator or wherever, when you pull them in, a lot of times they aren't automatically connected, so you don't have surfaces to work from. So with a floor plan, you can't just go grab a wall and pull it up to 8'1" or whatever. If you look at the Make Face extension, and like I said, I know there's actually 2 or 3 extensions out there. Enerot has one, S4U has one. Those extensions will run through your model and check and make sure that any place that has a closed loop of geometry, it closes so you have a face to work from. So that would be the first step that I would recommend. The other thing to keep an eye on is your grouping. When you import line work from CAD, it can be nested again and again and again and again and again, so your actual lines are like 3 or 4 groups deep. That can happen. And then stuff like creating faces can be just painful because you have to jump through different hoops. It's not necessarily a preferred method, but what you may want to do, depending on how well you know the CAD file you're importing or how much you trust the geometry, is actually leaving all the geometry grouped and then just go in and trace the pieces you want. It's a little more time consuming, but it's a way to check dimensions of your plans against the dimensions they say they are. And it gives you the opportunity to become familiar with the geometry, whereas you just pull it up, you might not actually be able to verify or check any information. But again, it depends on what you need. If you're responsible for the actual design work, then I would recommend recreating wherever possible because you're going to know the model that much better. But it's up to you. You can do that how you like. But yeah, check out Make Face.
So Andy H had a good question. Gets you back to playing with SketchUp a little bit. How would you model something like a teardrop? It's funny to me because for the longest time, people would ask, how do you make an onion dome? And this is just an upside down onion dome.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, let's make a teardrop. Sorry, I had to sit on my hands there, warm them up a little bit. Whew. All right, I'm gonna start. It's actually pretty close to a sphere. In fact, it's gonna almost be a sphere with 2 extra lines. I'm gonna come in here and draw a circle on the ground. Then I'm gonna turn sideways, and from that, I'm gonna go vertical and pull out a green circle there. I'm gonna draw a line straight up, and bring that line down to here. And I'll drop that straight down there. Now we have half of a profile of a teardrop. Now all I have to do is select the circle, follow me, pick that, and then I can actually soften and smooth that. There we go. And that geometry too, that I can just take that at any point, scale it, and stretch it out, squish it down. I would probably, in this case, depends on how fast it's going, I'd probably stretch it out like that to make my actual teardrop.
So I've made it far enough down that David Lopez responded to when you were messing with line weights for the section cut.
Oh yes.
His question was about lines in the background, not the actual section cut lines.
Oh, yeah, so all the rest of the lines are just controlled by, oh, no, edges,
You have to
edges,
change line thickness and layout.
yeah, in layout, you just select the model window and you set the length, or set the width. In SketchUp, they're always 1, unless you have
Yep. And
profiles or depth queue turned on.
yeah, and he was talking all about layout, so
Okay, yes,
it's worth playing with layout.
simple.
Speaking of additional programs, someone was asking, Tom Coolidge, I think it was, or Robert Coolidge, asked if anybody actually uses Style Builder. No one talks about it. Wants to know what it's really for.
Uh,
I like that. Like that, no one talks about it. All of a sudden, it sounds like a great jumping off point for conspiracy theories.
that's right, it's all about money laundering. I don't know how, but no, style builders is pretty cool. So a lot of people get into these styles over here. They go to select and they pick one of the styles, or they go to the different folders and they come up with one of the sketchy edges files. A lot of people don't go further than that. What style builder lets you do is actually choose, like, what are these lines, what are these pieces of line going to actually become from. So you can actually go in and by hand draw lines onto a template and scan them in, or use Photoshop to create, you know, broken lines that you want to use, and you can actually create this kind of geometry. You can also do things like this: change the background color, the color of the strokes. All this stuff can be done by using Style Builder. I'm not going to drop into a live demo of it right now, but there are videos for Style Builder on our YouTube site. So I would take a look at those. I think we had a couple of, like, just a skill builder, so simple, quick run through. But yeah, it is cool. It's not a conspiracy. It's a real thing. It works.
One of the
doesn't get used
one
as
of the
much.
neat features or functions of it is that you can actually print out a sheet and then draw lines the way you want them to exist, and then so you could actually draw with your own shaky hand the exact lines you want to use in SketchUp.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
So
is really cool software. Hi, Alejandro. Dave uses Style Builder. He does, actually. I've seen some of his models. He has his own sketchy styles he's created, and some cool background stuff too. That's one of the neatest stuff that I like about what you post, Dave, is you do have some of the cooler, better looking backgrounds.
You have an example?
No.
No. All right. That's fine.
I'm running off of a default installation. I have not used Style Builder since I installed 2020.
Oh goodness, it's been a while since I've used Style Builder too.
Yeah.
I mean, I already know an answer, but Robert's asked this a couple of times. When you made the ghost on Friday, why didn't you make it cylindrical like in Pac-Man? Why'd you make it flat?
Because I was following the plans that Jody gave me.
Exactly.
I was doing what I was told.
How many extensions are in the SketchUp extension warehouse?
Just under 400 right now.
Okay, that's pretty good. Right off the top of your head. Impressed.
I go up there. I go up there. That's the wrong warehouse. Try it again. Gosh, let's see if it says it on here. I know it says it on the web page. No, I believe it's right around 400 total extensions. Yeah.
All right. Scrolling. Sorry, I'm 6 minutes behind.
Oh boy, that's like a few dozen questions.
Any tricks for finding a component in the component window when there are hundreds? Oh, that is a good one. I know I've got a good fix.
Search. Right there. Name every component. And I say that because I'm bad at it too. Oh, what did you say? Oh, the component window? Oh, I went to Outliner.
Which, yeah, that would be my answer. Would be
use good.
Oh,
what do I keep doing?
Did you choose? You just use the auto close feature.
All right. Apparently, I got to watch my screen because every time I.
It's one of those days.
Well, you know, here's what I did. In the span of about 3 weeks, I think I've installed like 20 some extensions. I think I need to clean house. Because if I come in here to my tool palettes, It's actually more than can fit on the screen. I have to scroll through, so I need to clean up. In components, if you have in model, man, yeah, I know what you're talking about when you get that big, huge list. What was your suggestion, Jody? You said you had a suggestion.
No, it was Outliner. That was exactly it. I would just go to Outliner and search.
Yeah.
Although there was a follow-up question in there of, is there a way to select an on-screen component and trace it in the component window or the Outliner, I suppose. I mean, that would be a neat feature, actually, if you could right-click and say highlight, and then it would highlight it in your
That would be cool. Yeah, because I think if I select it here, it's not going to show up here, but it does in Outliner. If I pick it here, it'll highlight here. I don't have anything else in here. Hold on, let me make some more stuff.
Make hundreds of stuff real quick.
Well, maybe not 100, but how about ones of stuff? So as I pick different pieces here, it will highlight it here, and it will highlight it by the name. So if I click here and I find out this is called component 1, then I could come over here to components and go to my list view and find component 1. So that would be a way to do it if it's in your model. If you're talking about you just have hundreds of things here and you don't know what you're looking for, yeah, I'm not sure what the ideal solution, the ideal way to do that is. You do have, I don't know if everybody knows this, but you do have a filter option here. We can look at different thumbnail sizes versus the list view versus information. So maybe that'll help. I don't know.
No, and when you click on a component, you'll see its name in the entity info. Mm-hmm. And once you've got a name, you can search on that.
Yeah, that could do it.
One way to get there. Marcus Arcus pointed out that if the teardrop is falling, it is a sphere.
That's true.
And then Titus questioned, I'm not sure if he's asking you or if this is sort of hypothetical or rhetorical. He said, how do you make a hexadome? It means a sphere with all the faces or quadrants. Which I guess would allow you to then modify it on a...
I would download it from 3D Warehouse. There's no shame in that. That's why it's there. It's a tool for designers. I would go grab one.
Judgment-free zone.
That's right. This is a safe place. Yeah, I would download it if I was. I don't know what the exact geometry, what the geometric rules are to a piece of geometry like that. Like I've done videos on dodecahedrons and icosahedrons on how to make them as light on math as possible, as you probably guessed. But I don't know exactly what the rules are on that, so I'm sure there's a way to do it. I'd have to look. I don't know.
I like the idea of it.
Yeah. Hey, Jody, I saw a question go by for you. What's your favorite extension?
Just someone really asked me.
Yeah.
For the longest time I did support, and I was very much habitually not using extensions.
You're one of those
just because when someone would ask a question. Yeah. Well, and it wasn't that I was trying to. It was more so I didn't want to think that was the answer and then be like, oh, I just told you how to use a component, or an extension that you don't actually have. As far as extensions that other people use, I really like SubD. But as far as stuff that I would just use, the only one that I seem to be using is from your top 10 list last week. And it was, which one was it? I think I've used Curic Mirror a couple of times at this point, and Pushline. I enjoy those. They're fun.
Those are good ones. Those are definitely good extensions.
Yeah. I'm trying to get the 3D printer working here in my office, and so I hope once I get it actually being able to regularly print, then I'll use the solid inspector.
That's one that gets a lot of miles.
Yeah, but right now I'm not making anything. It doesn't matter how solid it is, because it ain't printing anyway.
Can't print just Laura.
I couldn't even print just Laura. It would peel off the bed.
Oh, that's true.
But that's a whole nother conversation.
Right. That's not SketchUp.
Nick asked if there was a way to avoid selecting hidden objects when making a group. For example, if they're hidden behind a wall or there's other objects.
I believe you're talking about this. If I go to select this right now, I'm going to get everything behind me. That's how SketchUp works. So this is where precision comes into play. So what I would recommend is a couple things. I'm just going to explode everything so we have some stuff to look at. When you are selecting to make a group, one thing is learning single click, which selects a face or an edge, double click, which will select a face and the edges that create it, or if you double click on a line, it'll select that edge and the faces that are connected to it. Or if you triple click on anything, it'll select all the connected geometry. There we go. Whew, couldn't triple click there. That'll select everything that is connected. If you get into a situation where you got too much selected, I recommend learning how to use modifier keys with select. So if you hold down shift, you get the plus minus. Plus minus means if I drag a window or click and it's already selected, turn it off. If it's not selected, turn it on. If you hold down shift and select its option on Mac, I believe it's control on Windows, you'll get the minus select. Minus select has become one of my favorite tools because I over select all the time. And then I can come back afterwards and just turn off those pieces I don't want. You can also, if you hold down just option or control, you'll get just the plus key. So this won't turn anything off. This is only for adding geometry as you select. So couple that with your select windows. Left to right says anything that is only inside the window will be selected. So in this case, even though my mouse is going over a portion of this cube, halfway across Laura and into my cylinder, the only thing that's going to be selected when I release is the top of that cube on the right. Because that was the, oh, I forgot she's not a component anymore. So it's her face and this piece on the right. If I go right to left, I get this dotted square. Now, anything that gets crossed, any line or face that gets crossed by this when I release is highlighted. So getting used to how to do that, how to precision select and modify selections using your modifier keys will help you from ending up with, yeah, unintended geometry being selected like that.
So Sadiq asked at the beginning, he didn't really ask, he commented, and it's not really something we can cover well, but he's now re-asked it, so I figure I'll just mention it. He said that he's using SketchUp on a Mac, and every time when he does different stuff, then it crashes. Unfortunately, that's a troubleshooting question, which we'd basically just spend the whole time we're here talking, troubleshooting that.
Right, so what I would suggest doing is, if you're getting it's still Monday. I mean,
I don't know where
it's Monday and it's cold.
More coffee.
So, yeah, there's a little left in here. I would suggest that if you are getting air, wow, this is really cold. Sorry. If you're getting bug splat, submit the bug splat with your name and email address in there. We don't respond to every bug splat that comes in, but if you go onto the forum then and say, hey, I submitted a bug splat, here's what was happening, and then you put your contact indicate your contact information. Don't just post your email into your post. Wait till somebody reaches out and then you can tell them your contact info. Then they can actually look and tell you what it is. Most of the time where you're having a recurring splat like that, it's probably either a conflict with hardware or an issue with extensions. And it's not quite as simple as the bug splat doesn't just go, oh, such and such extensions causing a problem, but the developers might be able to look and see, okay, you have this extension and it's conflicting with this extension, or you have a problem with, it was something to do with your video card. Every time we tried to send something to your video card, it blew up. They'll get at least an idea and help you track down the issue, but do submit those with your name and then reach out and we'll try to help find what the issue was.
Thanks for that.
Yep.
Barack's wondering why the first rectangle face is always reversed, like the very first thing you draw.
I know that. If I come in here and I draw a rectangle on the ground, it's going to be face down. The assumption is that if I'm drawing something on the ground, it's going to come up into 3D space. So if it does that, the bottom should be a white face like this, and then when I pull it up, it does that. So if you're ever working, you are intending to work in 2D and you want it to be that way, just right click and hit reverse faces and it'll go down that way. So that was the reason I was always told. Maybe I was a lie. Is that what you were told too?
I've never actually asked because I knew how to fix it. It was a quick fix. I guess it didn't bother me that much.
I guess not. Didn't cause enough pain?
Radoslav is, what's that?
I said it didn't cause enough pain for you to actually try to find a way to get it. It
was fixable, so I just fixed it and carried on. Radoslav asked if there's a way to randomize shapes in SketchUp, like if you wanted to experiment with shapes. He's a student of design and thinks that'd be handy for brainstorming.
We talked about that parametric modeler the other day. I'm trying to remember. I've already forgotten what it was.
I don't think I wrote it down.
Does anybody remember what that was? We looked at it. There is a tool out there that is a parametric grasshopper-y kind of extension that runs beside SketchUp and then draws your geometry in SketchUp, but I don't remember the name of it. It's from the guys who did Sketch Effects. Is that right?
Yeah. Viz Parametric. Is that it?
Yes, no, Viz Parametric.
Fluid? Okay.
Yeah, you might want to check that out because I think they have some tools to do that, to create geometry randomly. I can't think of an extension off the top of my head that just creates different.
Well, that one from Interop that you use for the Hobbit step, right? For randomizing.
Yeah, so Erode will take existing geometry and randomly break it down into smaller pieces. So maybe that works for what you're looking for.
Let's see. Oh, Endless Fix, who had asked about the finding components, said the outliner is great, but if he needs to edit the component properties, he still has to find it in the component window. And I don't have SketchUp open, but if I remember correctly, when you select something in the outliner, but I guess if he's trying to get the component properties for that specific component, what do you get when you do that in outliner? You can't right click and do component properties. Can't you control everything through entity info?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so you could say entity info or edit component right from outliner, which is the same information that I would see here. Actually, more information's up here. So when you select it, you're going to go to entity info to change it anyhow. What shows up here is just your component name and description. Unless that's exactly what if you're looking for just this, then you'd have to find it in component. But other than that, the description is really the only piece that you have to find that for. Otherwise, it's going to be in your entity info anyhow.
So a couple people have made comments. I don't actually even see the questions anymore, but I just remembered as I went past, Kay Brooks had a different question that he was asking. But a couple people are now curious about SketchUp and VR.
Yes.
Yeah, but so there's obviously not a way to do that now.
We have a couple ways to do what we can do. What SketchUp has available to it is a couple ways to view SketchUp models in VR. So there's third-party extensions like Enscape that allow you to quickly and easily view. There's some Unity viewers out there that lets you just take a model and view them. And then SketchUp itself, Trimble actually has a couple different options for Oculus, Vive, and HoloLens, as well as just mobile devices. So iPads, phones, Android tablets or phones can all be used to view SketchUp models. We've had several people ask about modeling and drawing in VR. We don't have anything right now. What I always get hung up on, and we've purely moved out of anything official, and this is just me thinking out loud. I haven't used a whole lot of VR drawing tools. The ones I have used, though, I'll say that like I only have maybe 10, 15 minutes of doing this or this before I'm tired of it. and and I will regularly sit at my desk with my hands right here for hours on end. And I'm just trying to think, can I sit there with a VR controller like this and do like a full model? I don't know. I mean, I guess there's people out there who do things like 3D painting and that kind of stuff, and they do big, huge models. I don't know. I guess I'd be interested to hear in your opinion if you think that 3D modeling in VR is going to be something that's going to take off, or if viewing is kind of where it's at. Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So
Yeah. So I have a PlayStation, and I was just kind of looking through recommended apps or something like that on it recently, and Google has created some sort of 3D VR drawing tool. This is all like hand draw, like sky
hmm
paint or something like that. But it seems like that's a good way to sort of explore with how realistic is it that you could actually do something in 3D space. It seems a little tricky,
yeah,
but
I don't know. Well, especially with the precision. I mean, SketchUp models down to what 10,000th of an inch or whatever.
yeah.
And a lot of input. No matter how you do it, you end up typing in numbers at some point. I'm just not sure how well that lends itself to VR input. But which not to say no. I'm curious how far that would go. And I do want to. I've actually
Yeah.
I've seen 4 or 5 comments go by on this, so I will point it out to anybody who didn't catch the comments. But we did release we have a podcast called SketchUp Talk that comes out every 2 weeks or so. And the most recent one was with our product manager of our VR apps, Mike Tadros. And he had lots of thoughts on VR. He had lots of thoughts. He just had lots of things to talk about. So it was a lot of fun to hang out with Mike and talk. So that is available anywhere you get your podcast. Check out SketchUp Talk, or it's actually available video podcast right here on our YouTube channel. So just throwing that out there.
That was
Yeah.
actually, yeah, that's good. That's a good little plug because that's, if there's an interview or a podcast you'd want to listen to, it'd be the one with Mr. Tadros.
That would be the one. That would definitely, he
Yep.
definitely talked on it. That's, I think,
Uh,
Ilgiz, I don't know. Sorry, I don't mean to be dismissive with your name. I apologize. On YouTube said that their opinion is that VR is good for gaming, but not for work, and I think it is a great gaming. I mean, VR is far and away being used by entertainment more than anything else. I do think there are spots where visualization in VR are very important, and I think they're good, and I think they're going to take off. But I just don't know how much asset creation in VR will be accepted. So, yeah.
it seems like a good way for viewing things, like especially with AR.
Mm-hmm.
But then as soon as you start going into 3D, I think that we're going to have just better precision than we can get out of these little handheld 2-button things that we've got right now.
Right. Yeah, and that's where I do think that some of the stuff like the 3D painting or sculpting and that kind of stuff, that's very, very cool. And I've seen some amazing stuff come out of VR that way, but I don't know that much of that was precision. Like, you know, it was all just kind of like, this looks good here, this looks good here, which as I'm saying that, I realize that I do model that way pretty regularly.
So maybe you should be using a VR.
Maybe so. We'll see what happens.
Okay, so I'm going to like kind of high speed scrub past some of these questions just so that I'm closer to.
All right, so while
The
Jody's
last 10
jumping
minutes.
back to where we got the last question, I do want to point, because one of the things that I don't want to be dismissive of VR at all, and Paul on YouTube is mentioning, and this is absolutely true, VR or AR is a great way to do customer presentations. So we talk all the time. I've said this in probably 24 different places I've talked. As design professionals, we get really used to seeing things in 2D and 3D. So when I worked as a building designer, I could look at a set of plans and I'd have an idea of how big a room was, how it was going to feel, what it was going to look like, just looking at the 2D plans. And that was what designers could do. And then we moved into 3D, and now people can look at 3D models, and it's the same for us to go, oh yeah, look, it's so much better, it's in 3D, you can see it. But a lot of people still aren't tuned to that if they're not in some kind of profession that uses 3D drawings. So dropping a headset on them and setting them in their living room and letting them look around at what this is gonna look like, that's where I think that AR or VR is has huge potential in most of our industries. Is that you can take that 3D model. So this is a great way to look at stuff in SketchUp. Look how big this box is going to be next to Laura. Okay, I can kind of get it, but if you set that box down next to me and I can walk around it and look at it, well, that's probably the best solution, short of actually building the thing and reviewing it then. So,
Well, I think one of the best kind of real world examples I heard was actually Mike Tadros. I think this was 2 years ago, talking about he had gone to the in-laws for Christmas, and he was in the basement, and like his mother-in-law, like they had torn out the stairs going from some part of the basement up to a different part of the house, and so there were no stairs there. There was just a door up in the sky, and he modeled up what stairs could look like, and then he got it all set up in there, and then he put the what was it, HoloLens on her, and she could actually see what the stairs were going to look like once they were built in place.
yeah.
And her reaction, I think, was sort of amusing to me, amusing to everybody, was she wanted to like be able to go over and touch them. She was trying to walk over and touch the steps, expecting to feel them.
Let's see what it's like if I walk up it. Oh no,
But
Grandma!
Blonk. Luckily, she's at the bottom, so that's fine. But so yeah. So again,
yeah.
that comes back to Mike Tadros is definitely a great guy to.
Yeah, I think he talks about that too.
If there's anybody that's thinking about it.
So just a slight tangent, but still not modeling, but another question is, will SketchUp support multi-thread? And I'll just, this has come up multiple times on the forum, so just to touch on it real quick. SketchUp is basically, what SketchUp does is it draws stuff on the screen. That's all SketchUp really does. So the anything else, any geometry, anything like that, like this is very minimum compared to the work that it does to draw your model to the screen as you move through it in 3D. Drawing to your screen is a single threaded process, and it's the time-consuming part of using SketchUp. That's what when SketchUp grunts and works on stuff, it's drawing that stuff to the screen. There are no 3D modeling utilities that multi-thread. There are softwares out there who claim multi-threading, but they do things like analysis or rendering or something like that, where they can put things out in multiple threads. The simple process of 3D modeling and drawing your model to the screen is a single threaded application, and nobody in the industry uses more than one thread for that. And you can go ask other companies, and if you really drill down, if they say they're multi-threading, they're doing something in addition to drawing to the screen on their multiple threads. So I know everybody goes, well, if you supported multiple threads, and right now we don't have a way to do that because there's not a way to pipe through the graphics pipeline to your screen on using multiple threads. So I just wanted to touch on that because we've had several people ask that, and multi-threading isn't a thing that single 3D modelers do. I'm sorry, you're
I'm going to go ahead. But I'm not finding anything. Let's just go ahead. If you had a question that hadn't been answered, go ahead and re-ask it. Because right now, mostly what's happening is conversations, which is good.
That's cool. I'll be here.
You guys can talk to each other. But if there's something that you want to hear Aaron talk about, then ask it. There's one kind of recurring thread from FAM Civil Engineering, which they're not necessarily questions, but there are a lot of them. He's wanting it to become a document, like using it for documentation. He wants it to have building analysis. He wants to have all this different stuff. And he even mentioned Sapphire should be part of Pro. I'm not sure if there's a question here, but it definitely sounds like maybe there's, at least from him, there's a desire to understand. Oh, he even has more recently a question of, is there a job out there for a SketchUp user? So it sounds like he's kind of trying to feel his way around SketchUp and building design.
Well, I'll throw out a couple thoughts. One is that SketchUp itself, the core competency of SketchUp is a 3D modeling tool. So that's the piece that the Trimble company that makes SketchUp focuses on making it a good 3D modeling tool. There's lots of other pieces that can be done with those models. So if we're talking about building design, then it is things like Sapphire or engineering software, that kind of thing, that can use the geometry that SketchUp creates to actually do those additional pieces. We, the team that makes SketchUp, are not structural engineers or anything like that, so we would not be the group to do that, but we have seen people make extensions to do things like framing or, you know, design loads or weights based on geometry. So that is out there. As far as a job, I'm guessing a good portion of the people who are on here are actually using SketchUp in some capacity at work. So yes, there are definitely positions that use SketchUp. I don't know how often specifically SketchUp Designer comes up as a job description, but SketchUp is usually one of the tools that is used in a lot of different workflows. That's another reason that I think SketchUp is an awesome tool to learn. I learned it on my own because I liked it and ended up pulling it into a lot of my work that I did. Yeah, I think it's definitely a tool that can be used in everything from like conceptual architecture to engineering to product design, drafting. It's definitely a solution that is used horizontally across dozens of industries. So yeah, it's a tool that you can use in lots of places.
Well, the nice thing is you can learn it, and since there's a lot of export formats. If you're using that as your main designing tool, you can get to other actual CAD applications fairly easily. And so you're not going to come in and be hamstrung if you don't know anything at all. You'll be a better position to at least have modeled in SketchUp than anything.
Yeah,
than nothing.
Absolutely. And we actually hear that all the time. We hear people all the time who go into a company and they start pushing SketchUp on it because it is so utilitarian and it is so open. They start squeaking SketchUp into other people's workflows and yeah, it definitely gets in there. It's a good tool to have in your tool belt.
Yes. Okay, so here's an interesting question I don't think I've ever come across. Jesus on YouTube asked if you could show how to deal with wall demolition documentation and a plan.
All right, let's.
I've never documented demolition. I just kind of swing a hammer. So
yeah, usually you can't do that if you're doing it in a larger scale. But let's. I'm gonna keep this fairly simple to start with, well, and to finish with. So I'm gonna say that here, this is our floor plan, right? We have a box of 4 6-inch walls, and what we want to do is we're gonna have a wall up front that we want to demo. So this wall is going to come out. So what I would do, here's would be my thing. I would take this wall that's going to be demoed, and I'll say it's 9 feet tall, and then I would take this piece, this wall right here, and I would put that into a component or a group. And then these walls back here would be grouped separately. Now, I would take these two groups and put them with, I would tag them separately. So I'm going to take this tag, I have 2 tags. One is going to be existing. Nope, almost. I got the right letters, just not in the right order.
So close.
Gosh. And then demo. So I put demo in big letters, that's how you know it's important. And then I would take this wall, put it on demo, grab this group, put it on existing, and now I can actually turn that on and off. I might come in here and actually clean up a little bit here. All right, I'll pull this out. All right, so there is my existing, and then here is the piece I want to demo. So by putting it on separate layers like that, I can do things like in color by tag if I wanted to. I could see the different pieces. So this is obviously pretty simple. There's one piece that's going to get demoed. But if I had a bunch of different pieces, I could actually color code that and choose to turn it on or off. And I could take that a step further too, because I could come in here now and say, you know, here's going to be my new, here's what I'm replacing that wall with, right? So it's going to end up being something like this. There we go, and I'll take all that, make that into a new group, and put that on a layer called new. Now I can come through here and I can toggle existing, demo, and new, and it's all just a question of putting it on different tags. So tag them differently, and then when you get into layout, you can go from a single view like this, and I can actually create my drawings of these 3 different pieces from this one view. So yeah, it's really just a question of tags. Pretty easy to do.
All right. Well, that was well. You had more of an answer than I would have had.
That's what I do.
Geert asked this up above, and I was going to respond, and then all of a sudden I realized I was 15 minutes behind everybody else. So we're asking again. Is there a way you can calculate in SketchUp like 27 minus 15 or 245 plus 87? It knows you can do division, but can you do addition or subtraction?
No, I think is the short answer. If I come in here and I type 12 plus 5, it's going to tell me that's an invalid length. So not right now. No. I think somebody talked about trying to do an extension, but I don't know that if you have hooks into the measurement bar through the API. So
Star Sundar asked the most reliable computer configuration to use with SketchUp and get maxed reality output.
Whoa.
Go to the forum.
Yeah. Oh. What's better, chocolate cake or pizza? No, those are two different. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Both. That's one of those
questions that changes pretty much from week to week.
I will say this. I will say that most of the people I see, when you start talking about max reality, I'm assuming that we're getting into things like rendering, and most people who do heavy duty rendering, and I'm gonna upset somebody with this, but it seems like most people who do heavy duty rendering will get into a high-end gaming computer, which means a PC. Alienware is a big one that people who get heavy into visuals will use. So I would say take a look there. I know Mac has their higher end stuff too, but I think with the customizability of PCs, and that's kind of where people go. So there's a lot of personal preference there. There's a lot of experience there that I don't have, but I'm just saying that's what I see through our users in our forum is people who are going to get into graphical creation of things usually end up with high-end gaming computers. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's fair assessment. I'll supplement that by saying ask on the forum, because the people on the forum are using SketchUp more likely in the use case that he's wanting to do.
But fair warning, if you ask, you're going to get answers.
Yeah, you might not like them too. Steve Guzman from Facebook asked what the first thing that you took from concept to completion was. Completion, he says, making or 3D printing using SketchUp. So designed a thing and went and made it in real life.
2 things. I don't know which one I made first. I created we got a 3D printer at the design place, the software company I worked, and I drew up a 2-story house in SketchUp in pieces and 3D printed that. Around the same time, I took SketchUp and created a fully framed house. It was a small house for a trade show, so it fit on like a 20 by 30 footprint. But it was 2 stories, had stairs, and I detailed that all out in SketchUp, and then it actually got built. But those were both about the same time, and I don't remember which one was first. So either a little 3D printed house or a full-size framed house. One of the 2 of those went from SketchUp to reality. Well, they both did. I just don't know which was first.
So this might be pretty straightforward, pretty quick. You already have some geometry in there. Richard on YouTube is asking if you explain how to export a SketchUp model to DWG.
Yes. Go to File, go to Export, and then choose if you want to export it as 3D or 2D. I'm going to go ahead and export a 3D model, and then You choose what your file format's going to be. So if it's DWG, go DWG. I do have some options in there. What version of Sketch or of CAD do you want to export? And then which pieces do you want to export? Now each of these pieces is actually going to be layered out separately. So your faces and edges will be separate. Your text, dimensions, and materials will all be on separate pieces. So, and then click OK. That's the process. Pretty simple. We try to keep it simple.
The kiss method.
That's right. Keep it simple. SketchUp.
Silly. Yeah, there you go. That works too. Brad Meacham asks, I think this kind of digs into advanced attributes. Okay, he says, is it possible to change/add component advanced attribute names? He'd like to have his own material field, i.e. 2x4, DF 3/4 inch, MDF 1/2 inch. Oh wait, material field, which would let him put different materials. I'm reading extra unnecessary information. There's not a material. It's not the material placed via material picker. He wants it to be like what you built.
So if you make something into a component rather than a group, right away, right off the bat, you get these 4 additional fields for data. So this is price, size, URL, and then type, which connects to like an IFC type or something like that. So those are in there as soon as you make a component. Just a note, these aren't actually connected anywhere. So this is just basically a text field that is entered into SketchUp. It says price, but you can actually put whatever data you want here. So you can kind of go halfway and kind of make that work. The other thing is once you create it as a component, you can right click on any component and go to dynamic component. So we talk about dynamic components being like parametric or resizing or multiplying or moving or changing color based on clicking. That's what parametric or dynamic components use for a lot. But the fact is, dynamic components are just components with additional data in it. So if you do come in here, I can come in here and say component attributes, and now I can come in here and say attribute, and I can put whatever I want in here. I can say building material. And then I can say this is going to be concrete. Or I can come in here and say this is going to be wood. I can do whatever I want because this is totally user defined. So you can put any data you want in there and just populate whatever information you want, and then you can actually report upon it afterwards. So yeah, that's a good question. I gotta say, I am kind of thinking I need to have pizza and cake for lunch.
Yeah, we actually had Chinese food on Saturday, and I'm kind of liking the idea of getting some food from somewhere else again. It was exciting. It's pretty bad, but that's exciting. On the extension warehouse, beside the model, there is a K beside the number. He wonders what that means. Is it
1,000?
literally? I don't know. I mean, that's all I can guess. I don't know what the number is.
One moment. Let's look. Wait, say 3D warehouse?
Extension warehouse.
Oh, my mistake. Boy, it's the second time I've gone to the wrong warehouse. All right, so let's look at Solid Inspector. I don't see a K.
I don't even see a number.
I don't see anything.
All right, we'll have to come back to that one.
Yeah.
Kai asked, and I think we should find a way to make it a bundle. He said, "Is there a basic bundle plugin pack you'd recommend, like Frito Tools, Joint Push Pull, etc.?"
I will refer back to the video we did Wednesday before last, which was, and this was totally me. This was Aaron's top 10 extensions, and it's not a pack, it's not a group, but I tried to come up with 9 or 10 extensions that were very diverse and functional, foundationally functional is what I'd say, where that means anybody of a workflow could probably get something out of those extensions I shared. So go back and check out that video. Jody could probably put up a link to that too, because it did walk through in a little over an hour. It walked through about 9 or 10 extensions. The last one was sub D, which is just a workflow I really like. So that would not fall into the required, but the rest of them, selection toys, solid inspector, I forget which ones they are, push line, are just good solid extensions that I would definitely recommend checking out.
Yeah, I think we're working on a blog post that will also be featuring all those.
Oh yeah, I need to work on
correctly.
that. Hold on, let me make a note.
Where'd Aaron go? Oh, he went off to type something.
Yeah, all right. Let's wrap this up. I got a blog post to work
on. So I just wanted to clarify one thing in here, because Titus had made a comment up above. The only thing on Mac is that you can't use GPU-based things because there's no NVIDIA, which is not true. There are Macs that have, they alternate on Mac. Sometimes they have NVIDIA and sometimes they have AMD. But as long as you've got something that's got one of those two 3D accelerated video cards, you can do GPU-based things. Mac has all the hardware benefits that Windows has. Now it's the end of my statement.
Good statement.
Manos asked if he could make a warehouse, in the warehouse, a library, and keep models there that he wants.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
Basically curating your own collection.
Yeah, absolutely. You have once you create your login, you do have to be logged in 3D Warehouse. You can actually go in and create your own collections, and those can be public or private collections. So they could be just for you to see, or they can be shared to anyone who wants to come across those collections. Yeah. And this is, I think, was the K question that was being asked about. I assume that means 1,000.
I mean, yeah, I have to assume that too. I haven't scrolled to the bottom yet to see if he has anything else there.
Maybe not though.
Dave asked if you
doesn't have a K.
If you have the 3D printed house at Basecamp.
I don't. Unfortunately, that was quite a while ago. I was trying to think about when that was, and that may have been near, man, before 2010. I don't know. I don't even have the model that was based on anymore, but it was about this, it's just a little tiny house like that, and it had first floor, second floor, and a roof that all clipped on, and it's on a MakerBot 2 maybe. Yeah, that was fun.
Ooh. Olden days.
Yeah, don't have it anymore.
So Colin had a further comment on the exporting DWG. He asked if you could briefly show exporting true curve steps.
Yes, I don't
exporting
have
out 3D and turning off faces.
Yeah, so if I come in here, I'm gonna just do a real simple example like this, and I'm gonna add an arc to it. All right. So this shape right here, SketchUp knows this is a curve. So if I come over here to Entity Info, it says, okay, I know it's an arc. So it does see that this is an arc. It has the arc length. That means from the center point out, it's 14/11/16 approximately. That's what this is. I'm choosing inside of SketchUp to draw that arc as 12 segments. So I could always come in here too, and I could actually bump that up, say 24. I could drop that down and say 6, but it's always going to be an arc. Right now, if I explode the arc, then nothing I'm saying is true anymore. But if I take this right now, if I export, I'm gonna get rid of this, say it was just this, if I export this as a 2D file, so if I go File, Export 2D, and I tell it I want to export a DXF file, it's going to export those line segments. So it's actually going to export the pieces that I see on the screen. That's just the way that 2D export works. There's not a way to change it. You can't do anything with that. So I'm going to cancel out of here. If I take this exact same model and I go to File, Export 3D Model, even though it's 2D geometry, if I'm going to export it as a 2D model, and then I say DXF file, options, and I just export my edges like that, it'll actually come out, that line will come out as a smooth arc. So if you're exporting for CNC, we're going to go do a 2D cut and I'm going to drive a CNC path through G-code, that's the way to do it. Export it as a 3D DXF, 2D geometry as a 3D DXF, and only export your edges. That's the answer.
That's the answer.
Yes.
Oh,
It's killing me now.
so Brad, who had asked about the attributes on your component, asked if you can use generate export. I think he means generate report utility to extract advanced attributes.
Yes, absolutely. So when you go to run generate report shows you a list of the attributes you can report upon. It looks in your model and sees any of those attributes, so you can actually report upon those additional attributes. Just try it out. Just go ahead and right-click and dynamic component and add your data in there.
Big J Gordon asked, why do scale toggles sometimes get very large and difficult to grab, where other times they seem tiny?
Oh, the
grabbies on the
yeah
instant definition.
These. They're scaled to your screen. So see, as I zoom in and out, they're always the same size on my screen. So they don't change size in the model. It's all relative to your screen. So if they seem really tiny, maybe it's because you're zoomed in and relative to the drawing they're small, whereas they look bigger if I get far back like this. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. I have seen some people with screen scaling where they have, I don't know how they do it, but you know, their screen artifacts are bigger or smaller. So I don't know if that is something you control through operating system. But yeah, they should stay the same, a constant size like this. Oh,
yeah, I would probably take a screenshot of what you're seeing and put it on the forum if they said and answer it.
I have had an issue leaving SketchUp running and then changing my displays. So going from my laptop display to an exterior or hooking up to like a projector or something like that, and while SketchUp is running, and having weird stuff happen with how much it scales, because I think it just comes up with a value that it's supposed to draw this at, and then all of a sudden I'm on a 4K monitor and it keeps drawing that same size. It looks really tiny on the 4K. It might be something like that. I'm not sure. Like I think Jody's absolutely right. Go to the forum, start a topic about scale handles, and post a picture too of what you're seeing.
Lost my place. Where'd I go? Oh, Transom makes furniture out of wood and is wondering if there's a good simple plugin to make materials lists.
Yeah, there's 4 solutions I could think of. One is generate report inside of SketchUp. There is an extension called cut list. I think there's an open cut list and estimator. Estimator might be a little more than what you're actually looking to do. That's actually gets pretty advanced with the material information you can put in there. But either cut list or open cut list both keep it pretty simple as far as reporting upon basic data. So I would take a look at those extensions for sure.
Yeah, more conversations going on.
That's great. I love it. This is awesome.
There's a lot of great back and forth about pizza versus cake, which is a good question.
Hey, I think we kind of peaked there. It's all been downhill from there as far as I can tell. I have neither pizza nor cake, by the way, so I'm actually a little irritated right now.
Yeah, it's kind of a rough situation you're in. Dave Richards, by the way, preferred, or he used cut list. That was his favorite, his preferred. So
yeah, I know he's definitely making furniture. That's
there is not a way to export directly to 3MF, which is 3D modeling file. Is that what it stands for? Tricky 2K was wondering if he ever asked about it, and there's not a way to. You've got to export to STL.
Okay. Yeah, usually STL is pretty well accepted everywhere. It's just a triangulated 3D mesh, or OBJ seems to be. A lot of people accept OBJs. So.
Question about your 3D mouse. Is it still the mouse from the video from a while? You haven't changed your 3D mouse in forever, right? Ever.
I did have a different 3D mouse when I made the very first video about 3D mice, which is maybe 3 years old now. And it's slightly different, but this is actually the second. I killed the first one they gave me. So this is actually the second enterprise I've used. But yeah, so this is actually my 4th 3D mouse I've ever had. I still have a little one. I have a little round one that I have in my bag for travel. I had the one Space Mouse Pro, maybe it's called, where it just has, I can't remember, 8 buttons over the top and they're customizable. But yeah, I definitely get my time and money's worth out of my 3D mice. I use them until they disintegrate.
Lots of miles.
Yes, many, many miles.
Can the 3D Warehouse, can you create a collection on 3D Warehouse and share it with just a select group of people instead of sharing with everyone? It's all or nothing.
We have 2 options right now, and that's private or public, and that's all we support right now on 3D Warehouse. Titus is reminding everyone that the cake is a lie. I don't have my Aperture Science shirt on today, but it's true. There's no cake.
Someone's got a spiral that failed. You want to try showing a simple spiral creation?
We'll do a spiral. We'll do this again. I'm always up for it. All right, I'm gonna come in here. Let's just do a native tool spiral. There are extensions that do this. There's actually Draw Whorl, W-O-H-R-L, and I think there's like Thread Maker or something like that, which is an extension that draws threads. And there's Spiral something or other. There's a couple different extensions that will let you draw these just by putting in values, and then it'll create them. But we're gonna do it manually real quick. Here's just a simple spiral.
You can explain what a purple line is. I'm pretty sure they mean magenta, or what we would usually call magenta.
A magenta line means something is tangent to something else. So if I was to draw an arc coming off of here, I'd have to have 2 lines. Hold on. That says it's tangent to the curve of the circle and the line at the end. So that's where you see tangent. If you're drawing arcs, that's what that means. All right, super quick, super simple spiral. I have my circle here. My circle is segmented. It's in a 24 edges. What I'm gonna do is go to one of those pieces, draw a line straight up, and then a line down. That is gonna be the arc of my spiral. We get rid of that line. Take this piece right here, rotate it from the center, from one edge, modifier key to copy, option, to here, and I'm gonna say 23x. There's already one copy, so 23 times more gives me my full 24 times. All right, now I'm gonna grab all these lines, and I'm gonna move them vertically from right here, the same point I was starting on, modifier key, straight up to this next point. So it's just taking the whole thing and moving it up. And I'm gonna go ahead and place it there, and again, say 23, 23x. Now that gives me 23 spirals. The spirals go from the bottom all the way to the top, and they make one revolution. They come around one time as they go up. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to double click on the circle at the bottom and delete it. And I'm going to grab this piece right here, triple click, excuse me, to select all the pieces that are connected to it. So that's my one spiral. I'm going to make that a group. Now I'm going to select everything else except for that group and delete it. This is the geometry I want. So if I take this now, I'm going to go ahead and explode it, grab it, I'm going to move it from the bottom, option straight up. Maybe I'll move it up 3 times, so I get 4 full revolutions. I'm going to grab all those. I'm going to use the extension weld. This is not a necessary step, but I'm going to do it just to make it one solid piece. And then I can use scale to lengthen or shorten that as much as I need. And there's a spiral.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Titus is curious if there's a solution to set the window to a resolution that's handy when you're exporting to 2D.
I always do my 2D exports through Layout. I don't even try to mess with SketchUp. Back before Layout, there was a thing where you try, based on your screen size, it would export different resolutions or that kind of stuff. I would say use layout. If you're not going to, when you do go to export, if you go File, Export to export an image, and I go Options, you can actually type in the exact size. So it'll take what's in your view, and then that would be easier. Otherwise, you're saying use view size, and then you have to resize it. Then that gets kind of messy too. So, yeah.
So SketchUp Web actually has a really good print to scale
Yes.
option, which is only recently, like in the last 3 months or something like that, become a thing. But that works really well too. I mean, if you're trying to do 2D or you're trying to print and you're not using SketchUp Pro, then SketchUp Web definitely is a good way to go.
Oh, Paul's heading off for some coffee and cake.
Oh.
I think that is the combination one. Pizza later, maybe. Right now, coffee and cake sounds wonderful.
That does sound good. I might actually have to cut out a little bit early.
I'm actually looking at. Just gonna say this is where I'm at right now. Dropping just below 60.
Your blood sugar level?
No, it's cold.
Do you have any tips going between Blender and SketchUp?
I haven't used Blender much, but
I
think people use OBJ for the most part, don't they?
I think so. Oh yeah, that's what Titus says.
Yeah.
And FBX.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Is it possible to export as 2D vector?
Yeah. If you go to File, Export, you can
got several options.
Export 2D, and then it says 2D graphic. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, you can export DWG, DXF, or EPS, and that will give you vectors. Looks like we're starting to wrap down. People are starting to drop off. Oh, it has been 2 hours. Time flies.
Yeah. How exciting is that?
Yeah.
3D mouse. How many keyboard shortcuts do you have mapped on your 3D mouse thingy? Oh, that's Mr. Richards is wondering. How many? You rattled off kind of a list of what you mapped, right?
There's a dozen up here, and then my arrow keys are here. My modifier keys are I left the default, but I have Shift, Control, Alt, Space over here, Escape, Enter, Delete. So yeah, maybe 2 dozen total. And I think there's a way to put a modifier keys that, like, there's a way to do a second on some of these where if you tap versus hold, you get a different function. But my brain just doesn't. That's just too much. I find that does most of it. So really what I come over here for is typing or numbers, but most of the rest of it I try to do over here when I'm just modeling, head down modeling. Jasevs asked on YouTube if you can model using only a touchpad. You can, you absolutely can. There's actually quite a few people who do that. There's a set of modifier keys you need to learn to use. So for example, if you hold down Control and Command on Mac, Control and Command will let you left click and orbit. Double finger up, slide up and slide down will zoom in. And then is it 3? Oh, that was not the right one. I'm trying to remember how to, there we go. Command, Control, Shift will go into pan. So it is absolutely possible. I've done it before, like working in an airport or something like that, where I don't have room to lay out my mouse if I had to pull up a quick model and make some changes. But man, it doesn't compare in functionality and ease of use to a 3-button mouse, but you can do it if you need to. And like I said, there are a handful of people who do that and like it, but so it's possible. I
think April Wilkerson does. I think, well, John Bacchus, the director of product management, does in our office. I don't know. They're all crazy though, I think. So JH Sevs also, I was asking about using templates. I think it was him. Yeah, can use templates with SketchUp Web, and I just pulled up, and it looks like, yeah, you can now. There's a simple feet and inches, a simple millimeter, and a simple meters. So you can do templates now with SketchUp Web.
All right.
Titus thinks you should model something from Black Mesa. I think a crowbar is the obvious choice.
Or a pair of glasses.
Or a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
And yeah, otherwise, yeah, people are starting to say cheers and wandering off here.
Awesome.
Let's see.
That makes sense.
Scroll.
Okay. Well, let's start to bring it down. Like this spiral, we will start winding down. If you guys do have questions that weren't answered, I said this at the very beginning. Do head over to our forum, forums.sketchup.com. Join up and ask a question. It is a great way. It's not like some of those other forums that software companies have where people are going to jump down your throat for not knowing an answer or asking a stupid question or anything like that. As long as you don't come in with a bad attitude yourself, I think you'll find it's a very pleasant place. Great people there, super smart people. Some people give their time freely and just have answers for anybody who comes along, help you with examples. People have even connected up and done some training, that kind of thing. So if it didn't get your question answered, do head over there. It's a great spot.
I do want to throw my endorsement behind Blake's suggestion of doing a live stream of layout. Maybe that's a Wednesday one we could do sometime.
Yeah, that could be fun.
I mean, we've at this point made a bunch of mechanical models.
Yeah, we have stuff to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll
coming up with more stuff.
Maybe next week will be layout day.
Layout day, National Layout Day. That's what we'll call it. Or at least regional layout? No, international. Wait, there's probably more people on here that are not from the U.S. than are.
That's right. People are checking in from more than just Minnesota and Colorado nowadays.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? Actually, Brian Campbell on YouTube's asking about DaVinci. We did the DaVinci air screw helicopter. Well, my version of the drawing, because the drawing, it's a picture about this big on canvas or on
and was wrong.
Apparently, it was wrong. I did my best. I tried. But yeah, that'd be cool.
I was just trying to throw shade on DaVinci. I wasn't really aimed at picking on you.
Oh man,
he was wrong.
He can't defend himself.
That's right.
All right. Well, we're going to call it here.
All right. Probably a good plan.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you for all the great questions. That was an awesome way to spend a couple hours. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you, Jody, for reading questions because they were coming way faster than I could answer them.
Yeah, I don't feel like I ever really properly got caught up there.
There's still. I'm going to go swing back through because I think there's some we never actually saw. The screen was going so fast. And thank you guys. Like I said, thanks for coming by. We are going to be here again on Wednesday. I'm not 100% sure what we're modeling, but it'll be a model along of some sort. If you keep an eye on our forum, you'll see an image, which is what we're going to model together, so you can download it and follow along. Or you can always watch the video afterwards. That's an option too. But hopefully you got something out of this. Thank you for hanging out with us. If it wasn't for you, it would be just me sitting in a cold garage talking to Jody for 2 hours.
But, I have some good questions. I mean, they're usually more theoretical, but...
That's true. All right. But it wouldn't have been as productive. It wouldn't have made as good of a video, I don't think. So.
Yeah, good point.
Anyhow, thank you very much, guys, and we will see you later.